Okay, so the last thing that we need to do before we let you hook in and get faster and more efficient at running is have a look at our 5 key principles that we'll be exploring in this program. And we're going to use 6 strides from Eliud Kipchoge's London Marathon in order to do that. And they demonstrate these 5 key principles of efficient running really, really beautifully. So the first of these principles is the mid-foot strike. Okay, so this first video, we are going to be looking at the mid-foot strike. So this is the 6 strides we'll be looking at. This is Eliud Kipchoge. He's the world record holder for the marathon, and he is well known as having one of the most efficient running techniques in the world. So if we just pause this here and take it back to the moment his foot strikes the ground. So as you can see, his left foot coming through here as it's about to strike the ground, and it strikes right there. So you can see that he is landing on the rear of the ball of his foot. It's impacting just before his heel. Now, the midfoot strike is really, really important for a number of reasons. The main reason is injury prevention. So you can see that by striking on the midfoot, he's striking underneath his hips. He's getting all that shock absorption through his foot, the shock absorption up through his knee and into his hip. And that's how the force is designed to be dispersed, rather than if we strike as a heel striker in front of our hips or as a toe runner out in front of our hips. We're not absorbing the shock as our body's designed to, and most of that shock gets absorbed through joints like our knee and our back in ways that they're not meant to, and that can obviously lead to chronic injuries. So you can see if we continue the video here, each of his strides, he's landing on the ball of his foot, the rear of the ball of his foot just before his heel. Now if I scroll back again, with his left foot stride here, the impact is right there. Now I've put up in the corner here a diagram of the foot, and I've circled where that impact point is. So when we're doing our midfoot striking drills, and when we're doing all of our running in this course for that matter, I want you to think about how that feels and feeling that part of your foot impacting the ground first, slightly before your heel. If you can do that, there's a fair chance that you'll be stacked underneath your hip and you'll be taking a lot more force away from those sensitive joint areas like your back and like parts of your knee, and you'll find that you'll run with a lot less soreness, and you'll also recover a lot quicker from your run. Moving on to principle number 2, that is the height in your stride. So as I let this play out, I'm going to explain this in a really beautiful, simple way that one of my coaches once explained it to me. If you're an ultra runner, you want to step over your ankle. If you're a middle distance runner from, say, 10Ks to marathons, 5Ks to marathons, you want to step over your calf. If you're a sprinter, you want to step over your knee. Now, if we take this back here now to explain this principle in a little bit more detail, you can see that as Kipchoge is running here, we've got his beautiful impact point below his knee, and I'll let this play out. You can see that as his foot comes over the top, it's as though he's stepping over an imaginary fence that's about halfway up his calf. Now, if we were to show this same video of Usain Bolt, what you might see is that he's stepping over an imaginary fence that is around about where his knee is. Whereas if I showed you a slow motion video of an ultra marathon runner, it might be as though they're stepping over a miniature fence that is about the height of their ankle. So if I let this play out, the height in your stride that you're aiming for as a middle distance runner is your foot passing through at around about that mid-calf level, stepping over that imaginary fence. Now you can see that Kipchoge is doing that beautifully. What that allows you to do, I'll go back to the start of this. What that allows you to do is to get length in your stride without overstriding and striking in front. So by getting that height and that stepping over of that mid-calf area, you're getting great distance on each stride, but you're not overstriding to the point where you end up heel striking or striking in front of your hip, and you can still get that beautiful midfoot strike underneath your hips there. So when you're doing your drills, and when you do it, particularly when you're focusing on the height in your stride, imagine that imaginary fence about mid-calf and try to step over that each time. Rightio, moving on to principle number 3, stacking your hips and your shoulders. So one of the great things about our 5 principles is that if you get the first 2 right, then this stacking your hips and shoulders will come pretty easily to most people. So if we press play on this, and we can just wait until Kipchoge comes to directly in front of the camera, and you can see this really, really nicely. Again, just reviewing, lovely foot strike, lovely height in this stride, and if we just pause right here. So you can see at this point of impact, his hips, his shoulders, and where his foot is striking the ground almost exactly on top of each other. Now, what that does is it gives him extra propulsion. So it means that everything that in his stride is pushing him forward. It also means that he has no force pushing back up into his body that can cause injuries. Now, what we're looking to do here is not run tall like we might have been told in the past. We're looking to get that impact point of our foot, hip, and shoulders all in line so that we're absorbing the shock through our whole body, not just through particular joints, which can cause injuries. What we are looking to avoid, and what's really, really difficult to do if you are getting height in your stride and you have a midfoot stride, is bending at the waist and leaning forward, or leaning really far back. Now, both of those things tend to happen at higher intensities, but you do often see it if you go down to your local park run. You'll see people running, leaning 45 degrees forward, staring at their feet, or staring up at the sky, leaning 45 degrees backwards. So we're looking to get that beautiful stack, shoulders through to hips, through to strike on the ground. It'll make you faster, and it will also prevent injuries. Principle number 4 is arm path and position. Arm path and position is pretty simple, but can have a pretty big impact on your run. Most of our arm path we want to be behind us here. You can see he has this really strong elbow drive, and there's not a lot of upswing at the front like you might see with a traditional sprinter's technique. So now, if we move back to the middle of this video here, what you may have noticed is that he's actually swinging across his body a little bit. Right there, you can see that he's touching his chest. Now, I've actually seen a video with one of Kipchoge's coaches where he actually talks about how this is a cue that they use to stop him from swinging across the midline of his body. He obviously has a beautiful elbow drive at the back, which helps to lengthen the height in his stride, but he did tend to cross over a little bit and swing his shoulders, which meant he wasn't running as straight as he possibly could. Now, over a short distance, that may not matter too much, but over a long distance, that can add up to a significant difference. So the cue that they use for Kipchoge is to touch this midline on his chest. So he touches his breastbone occasionally, just to remind himself not to swing across that midline, and that keeps his shoulders really beautiful and square. So if we go back just a little bit and we watch a couple of these parts where we can see him from front on, we pay particular attention to his arms. Nice elbow swing back, arm coming to the midline but no further, arm coming to the midline but no further. And if you go back just a little bit further again, we can see that arm coming to the midline but no further across, that arm coming to the midline but no further across with that beautiful elbow drive, which helps facilitate everything that's happening down the bottom here with our midfoot strike, with our height in our stride, and it helps with the stacking of our hips and shoulders as well. And our final principle, principle number 5, tempo and cadence. Now, your tempo or your cadence is your strides per minute. You can see Kipchoge here. He runs at about 180 to 190 strides per minute. Being elite, being a world record holder, he's had people calculate that that is the most efficient stride frequency for a long distance runner. You may not be able to do that. In fact, a lot of our athletes use 180 to 190 beats per minute as their tempo or their moderate effort goal. But what we have found is that increasing your stride frequency a little bit almost always makes you run faster, makes you run more efficiently, and makes you run technically better, even if it means shortening your stride a little bit. It allows you to strike under your hips better, it allows you to strike on your midfoot better, and it also allows you to run faster at the same effort. If you're wondering a song that you can listen to get you to 180 beats per minute, Lose Yourself by Eminem is about that. So if you tap your foot along to that song, that's roughly how fast you need to be striding to get 180 beats per minute if you're able to. If you're not able to, just increasing or aiming to increase your stride frequency by 5 to 10 strides per minute will make you run faster. You'll be more efficient and you'll be able to run faster at the same effort. So that's tempo and cadence. So there you have it. That's our 5 key principles. Now you know what they look like in an elite runner and you know what you're aiming for. You've got all the tools that you need to go out and get faster in 5. We can't wait to see how you improve and all the amazing things that you're going to do in your running once you run more efficiently, once you get injured less, and once you can run faster.